So, we live in pretty distressing times. Our country is tearing itself apart over a really stupid decision, and it feels like the rhetoric against immigrants is only getting worse. It can make it pretty hard to want to carry on sometimes. In times of crisis like this, it can be easy to lose hold of yourself, to get angry at the irresponsible, incompetent maniacs who put us into this decision and didn't care about any of the people that they hurt. It just makes me so... That's... Is it hot in there? It's just quite a hard stare you're giving me there. Sorry. Well, it seems that I've forgotten my manners. But yes, times are hard and we could all use something to lighten the mood now and then. And given that I'm me, it has to be a movie. And given how hard the times are, it has to be something really delightful. Enter Paddington Bear. Created by British author Michael Bond in 1958, Paddington Bear is the star of a series of 14 children's books. Bond came up with the character after finding a lone stuffed toy bear in Paddington Station. This inspired him to write the book A Bear Called Paddington, which he did in 10 days. The books are very simplistic, following Paddington as he clumsily ends up in all manner of mishaps, but never through any kind of maliciousness. Paddington Bear is always kind and considerate. They're kids' books, so they're very accessible. And nice. Just nice. Sometimes all you need for a book is to just be nice, and the Paddington Bear series has that in spades. As well as the books, there was an official Paddington teddy bear, produced by the owners of Gabrielle Designs, Shirley and Eddie Clarkson for their children. I wonder if either of their kids ever went on to do anything of note.
And then it's always because somebody's jumped in front of it. Always because, and somebody's burst. And you just think, well, why have we stopped? Just because somebody's... If you've hit somebody, there's no point stopping. It won't make them better. You just keep going. But they don't. They always stop in Reading. Why are you looking so shocked?
Well, looks like someone didn't learn any of the lessons that Paddington was teaching. Then in 1975 there was a Paddington TV series, produced by Bond and made by Filmfare, all inspired by different comedic moments from the books. I definitely saw some of the show as a kid. It was one of those things that even if it had finished its original run over a decade before you were born, you still just saw it. I think I must have seen it on a Cartoon Collection video, along with Huxley Pig and Super Ted. For all that I didn't really watch a lot of this show growing up, it certainly did have an effect on me. The animation style is remarkably charming, and it gets across the message of being incredibly nice and polite really well. In 2014, we got the film of Paddington, directed by Paul King. I remember when the first trailer for this came out, and all we got was Paddington putting toothbrushes in his ears and pulling out the wax, and I was dreading it. I was so worried that this was going to be just another ruination of a classic children's book. Fortunately, I could not have been more wrong, as this film is simply divine. This film is like injecting concentrated joy directly into your veins. Everything about it works. It's really funny and likeable, with characters who are perfectly realised, each with their own little arcs that pay off along the way. And underlying it all is a powerful pro-immigration message. I mean, this isn't news to anyone, is it? This movie is literally about someone emigrating from his own country to another in search of a better life, being taken in and ultimately improving the lives of everyone around him. I mean, it's not even subtext at this point, it's just... text. They did an excellent job of taking this story that turns 60 years old this year and fitting it into the modern setting. We live in a time when immigration is a thornier issue than it ever has been, and Paddington is the perfect film to examine this, as it's built directly into its main character and story. Paddington comes from darkest Peru, believing that London will hold everything he's looking for, that people will be kind and understanding to him, based on outdated ideas that Aunt Lucy and Uncle Pastuzo learned from the Explorer. Which, probably something about colonialism leading to mass immigration years down the line, and the issues that many people have with immigrants being completely at odds with their desire for some kind of return to a British Empire, or I don't know. But when he gets to London, well, most people just sort of look through him. It's only because one family takes kindness on him that he gets a chance to prove himself to his community and win people over. And win people over he does. It's a wonderful depiction of the positives of immigration, as Paddington makes people's lives better. Specifically, the Brown family. We have Mr. Brown, played by Hugh Bonneville, Mrs. Brown, played by Sally Hawkins, and no, I will not make a Shape of Water or Downton Abbey joke. Actors can be in more than one thing. Stop that! There are also Jonathan and Judy, played by Samuel Jocelyn and Madeline Harris respectively, and Mrs. Bird, played by Julie Walters, their housekeeper, grandmother, live-in concubine. Who is Mrs. Bird anyway? When they first take him in, the only ones who are fine with the idea are Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Bird. Mr. Brown is inherently suspicious of the whole thing, taking a stranger into his house, especially since he's a bear. And remember that for bear, we must read immigrant. I mean, I doubt he would try to update his home insurance policy if he was letting someone from England into his house for the night. And, well, things do go wrong. Paddington's lack of familiarity with British culture leads to him flooding the bathroom, and the bath ends up in the kitchen. This creates a certain level of animosity on Mr. Brown's part that is soon overcome. But this is more down to his being overly cautious about everything since he became a father, which is brought up in one of the film's funniest moments.
Could you be careful? There's a baby here. Could you step back? There's a baby coming through. Could you keep those flowers away, please? She's too young for pollen.
Where's the bike, darling?
This is our new car.
What? It's very beige, isn't it?
It's a calm and neutral colour. Could you get in?
And upon spending some time with Paddington, he begins taking more risks, dressing up as a woman to sneak into the Geographers Guild, and climbing around the side of a building. This allows his life to have more meaning. The presence of the immigrant in his life makes things inherently better. And it's not just Mr. Brown that he helps. In the second movie, we see just how much of an impact he has on the whole community of Windsor Gardens. Be it something as simple as reminding Sanjeev Bashkar that he left his keys inside the house, or a more personal assistance like helping this bin man study for his exams, or his own act of selflessness in cleaning Ben Miller's windows for free, allowing him to meet Jessica Hines and the two falling in love. He's a wonderful presence in the neighbourhood and brings joys into everyone's lives, and when he's in prison under false circumstances... This is about immigration, you say? Everyone's lives are made more difficult. And speaking of the community, these films show a wonderfully diverse culture in London. There's Indians, an Italian, a German, and of course this great little calypso band that keeps popping up. This does reflect a lot on the actual community of London and England as a whole really, at least in the good parts. But we do need more calypso bands on the streets in reality. However, not everyone in the movies likes Paddington. There's the villains who have their own personal reasons, not especially to do with immigration, but with a destroyed family reputation and wanting to find treasure to fund a one-man show. No, the character who hates Paddington because of where he's from and who he is Mr. Farage. I mean Curry. Mr. Curry is fully representative of a specific type of Leave voter. He has no reason to dislike Paddington other than because he's a bear. This makes Mr. Curry uncomfortable and confused, just shy of saying, "There goes the neighbourhood," when he first moves in. He's a cheap and nasty individual with a Napoleon complex. His filthy furniture clearly hasn't changed since the late 70s, he has several dead flies stuck to paper around his home, and he steals flowers from a roadside memorial to try and impress someone. This pathetic excuse for a human being is what UKIP looks like to most people. Also, I am fully certain that Mr. Curry celebrated Christmas alone, watching the Queen's speech on a tiny TV in his kitchen. Now this is a bit different to the book, where he's just a bit of a mean person looking for stuff to be mad about. It's not much of a stretch to get from one to the other, but it is a pointed change that really complements the themes of the movie. Now, some might say I'm reading too much into this. If it's just a cute kids movie about a talking bear, then I should stop trying to politicise it. I say thee nay. Immigration is built into the text, and a hugely important part of the inspiration of the character is taking in refugees. Paddington's iconic label with the phrase, "Please look after this bear, thank you," harkens to the English refugee children who were sent out of big cities into the countryside during the Second World War. They had cards on their clothing with their names and addresses, and they were taken in by people from the local communities. Look up Goodnight Mr. Tom if you want to see more about that.
You know, there was once a war in the explorers' country. Thousands of children were sent away for safety, left at railway stations with labels around their necks, and unknown families took them in and loved them like their own.
The labels were also used with what is known as the Kindertransport. This was something I was not familiar with until recently, but during the 9 months immediately before the outbreak of the Second World War, the United Kingdom rescued around 10,000 predominantly Jewish children from Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia and Poland. Many of these children were the only members of their families to survive the Holocaust. I feel like this is one of the most open-hearted, kind things our country has ever done, and I can't believe I hadn't heard of it before. This is the sort of compassion we should be teaching people and emulating in our own day-to-day lives. And the films make very specific reference to the Kindertransport, in the shape of Paddington's friend Mr. Gruber. Now obviously in 1958, when the first book was written, there was no way that an old man could possibly be a Kindertransport from less than 20 years earlier. He was inspired by Michael Bond's literary agent, in fact. But in the film, we see this little beautiful moment.
I had a red aunt who took me in. But I soon learned a home is more than a roof over your head.
Making Mr. Gruber into a Kindertransport gives him a deeper connection to Paddington, and it helps to get across the message of the movie in that we would all be better if we were simply kind to people, like those back in the 1930s were kind to a group of children escaping from a terrible evil. Paddington and Paddington 2 are wonderful films. They're light-hearted, funny and touching. The pro-immigration message of the films is intelligently done, and in this current day and age especially necessary. I hope people seeing these films can take these things away from them, and learn to not hurt people who need the most help. We are driving ourselves apart in so many ways and treating people as less than ourselves just because they come from somewhere else. But if we were simply to take in some of the message from Paddington, then maybe we could start to treat people like humans and start to make things a little better. So please, look after this bear. Thank you.
London is a place for me. London, that lovely city. You could go to France or America, India, Asia or Australia. You gotta come back to London City.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching my video about Paddington Bear and immigration. Bit of a thorny subject I know, but I really hope you liked it. If you'd like to see more videos by me, click the subscribe button here. If you want to see me talk about The Mummy from last year, that's down here. And if you want to see me talk about Lego Batman, well then that's over here. This is the first time I've done one of these where I've been on screen. What the hell?